Hey there, it's me, Brett Fish, and welcome to another episode of Race with Me. In this one, we are just going to be doing a quick refresher to remind ourselves of ideas 11 to 20. So before we head to the final 20 ideas in this series of 50 ideas for white people who are asking, but what can I do when it comes to race and anti-racism work? We are just doing a bit of a recap, and in this episode I'm going to look briefly at the ideas from the videos that dealt with ideas 11 to 20. And idea 11 was about nuance and intention, and we looked at this idea that even if you have the best of intentions, we can still do things that hurt other people. Having good intentions doesn't mean I'm not racist. It just might mean I didn't mean to be racist. But intention is not good enough. We looked a little bit at nuance, how one size doesn't fit all, that we really need to do the work. We really need to be listening to people. We really need to be learning and trying to understand so that we can continue to be less racist and more accepting of people around us. In episode 12, we looked at being the loud white voice in the room, and episode 13 was about centering yourself or white people, and those are both linked about white people having center stage, being used to having the mic, being used to being the voices of authority, and how we can combat those or start to combat those, dismantle those ideas by starting to just step more into the background by raising or amplifying voices of people of color, and by refusing to be the dominant voice in the room, by stopping making everything about us, refusing to do the white tears that gathers everyone's attention and moves the focus and spotlight away from the work that needs to be done. In episode 14, we finally got to white privilege, the idea that I have certain advantages, opportunities, access, things like that, simply because I'm white. And not that the solution to that is to feel guilty about having white privilege, but that what we need to do is to be able to recognize that we have it. There's certain advantages I have simply because I'm white. Being able to acknowledge it, say it out loud, I have white privilege, and then being able to leverage it, being able to use areas of privilege and moments of privilege to be able to raise others up, to be able to step out the way, to be able to help those who don't have privilege to receive some of the benefits and access and opportunities that we are receiving merely because we are white. We then looked at the idea of white-splaining, a white person having to or feeling the need to re-explain something a black person has said, or to kind of just, we know what mansplaining is, we know what white-splaining is. The point is, don't do it anymore. Episode 16 was the difference between whiteness and being white. I am a white person, but whiteness is an ideology that has pervaded around the world, that has suggested that white is more clever, that white is more capable, that white is more beautiful. So many things about whiteness, and for most of us growing up in a sea of whiteness, or an ocean that says whiteness is better, whether we're white or even other people of color, it has been so pervasive that many of us have started to believe it. And so how do we start working against the ideas that are in our head, many from birth? And we need to be fighting against whiteness as an ideology, as a way of thinking, as a way of uplifting white people. But I don't need to worry about the fact that I'm white. I need to be aware, what does it mean to be white? But it is whiteness, the ideology, that we are fighting against. We then looked at the difference between equality and justice. We looked at things like equity, the picture of the boxes outside of the sports stadium, and somebody having a lot of boxes, the tall person being on 3 boxes, the short person being on 1 box and not being able to see, and saying sometimes that equality is not justice. And so if you've got a person who has R1,000,000 and you've got a person who has 10 Rand, giving them both equality, giving them both R1,000 isn't justice. Because R1,000 means something very different to someone who already has R1,000,000, and it means something different to someone who has 10 Rand. And so we need to work at the difference, the horrible inequality between rich and poor in South Africa, and that's where class comes into this, as it often does, and realize that giving the same treatment to everyone doesn't necessarily mean justice. If the field has been slanted in favor of one person or one group of people for so long, then it might mean slanting it in favor of other people. We touched on things like BEE, sports numbers and quotas, things like that, but the importance of leaning towards justice and how equality and equity and other things might not always be the way to get there. We then touched on this idea of the better black, the better colored, the better Indian, and often a persona that a black person might feel they need to put on, especially when they are the minority in a group, one black person in a group of white friends, that they have to act a certain way, they have to speak a certain way, dress a certain way, pretend to like certain foods or music or whatever to be able to fit into the group. And so this idea that I've got to be the better black, colored or Indian person, and how for us as people in the majority group, for us as white people, to be able to recognize where this might be a problem, where people might be feeling that they have to do certain things or say certain things to fit in with us, and being aware of that and being able to address it in a way that is honoring everyone in the group, not making somebody feel out and spotlighting them and making them feel awkward, but finding ways to include and being able to learn to celebrate difference instead of seeing it as worse or less than. For episode 19, I spoke a little bit about my anti-racism journey, how most of this took place when I was spending a bit of time in America, when Trayvon Martin was killed, when Eric Garner was killed, the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement. And by sharing my story of how I realized at that time I needed to come back to South Africa and I needed to be actively involved in speaking out, in learning, in listening, in acting differently, in working on my anti-racism, but also on the anti-racism of people around me, and also on the systems and structures of things that were still holding up whiteness. And the hope was that as I shared a little bit of my journey, it would be an invitation to you and other people to go, let me step into that as well, or wherever you are in your journey of anti-racism, to just be able to resonate and lean in and join me on this journey that I'm on and that I'm going to be on for the rest of my life. And then finally in episode 20, we looked at this idea of conditional acceptance, which links a bit, I think, to the idea of the better black, the better colored, the better Indian, of I will accept you if you fit into my mold. If you do things my way, I'll accept you if you speak the way I want you to speak. And just the challenge once again, and most of these ideas I think about anti-racism have to do with celebrating difference in other people, celebrating the incredible nature of people who are different to us, that they bring different things into the room, and that is worth celebrating, not looking down upon. And so those are ideas 11 to 20, and I'm going to do one more video where I catch us up to idea number 30, and then we are going to move forward again on the last 20 ideas that will take us up to 50 ideas for white people who are saying, what can I do when it comes to race and anti-racism, the journey that I need to be on. So I hope you found this helpful. I hope this has started to refresh ideas. If you have heard an idea that you've forgotten about, go back and find the video and watch it again. Each of these has an 8 to 15 minute video that explains it a little bit more and better. And if you are finding these helpful, please tell people about it. Please tag and share and subscribe and invite others. This work is for all of us as white people to be doing, so that we can start to make our country and our world better and feel better for other people around us that don't look like us and may not be having the same kind of experience of life that we are. So thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.